All right. Um, yeah. So first of all, let's see. Are they reopening Clark next fall? So Clark has been slowly opening up. There were some courses offered, I think in hybrid models this quarter. There's more courses that are going to be offered in person in fall. Um, Computer science, electrical engineering, I think across the board we are still online for fall. Um, And then in winter, the plan right now is to go back to offering classes in person. Although computer science, we're looking towards um, continuing to offer some of the computer science engineering courses online, even once we're back in person, to give people an option for doing the whole program online. But that's under development slash exploration. So fall, all of engineering CS should still be online, and summer is definitely online. All right, so nice work with the SLP presentations yesterday. Had a really good turnout from students and good turnout of visitors. I saw some rooms where there were 4 students and 8 visitors. So when you're outnumbered by interested parties, that's always good. Um, and lots of good projects, lots of good results, and so on. So really nice work with the SLP. It's a hard piece of the course and the curriculum because we don't give you hard and fast deadlines other than at the end of the quarter. So these 10-week increments, and it can be hard to stay motivated. It can be hard to work consistently throughout the quarter. And a lot of these projects were pretty ambitious, and it's just plain hard to get them to work sometimes. So I saw a lot of good work coming out of that, and that's really exciting. Um, I posted an announcement. If you want a little bit of extra credit opportunity, go ahead and make like a 4 to 10 minute video of your presentation, and drop that into the shared drive area mentioned in the announcement, and you'll get some extra credit. Um, yeah, you can get extra credit above 100 out of 100. So um, yeah, it'll just add on, and everything gets averaged together. But if you've got 100 out of 100 on the SLP, and you do 20 points extra credit, then you got 120 out of 100. So that'll just add on to your grade. Recommendations for recording software. I think Windows comes with just a built-in camera thing, and it has an option for still recording um, or making a video. And I don't know what format it uses, but that should uh, give you a file pretty quickly. You can go online, Open Broadcasting Studio, if you want to go to the extreme of capabilities. So OBS is nice. If you're Linux, there's a gazillion options. I just use Simple Screen Recorder and show my camera, but Cheese is a good one. I mean, there's tons of options, but I think it's built into Windows. Um, just window key and search for camera, and there's usually an option for doing a picture or doing a video. And Shotcut for video editing. Yeah, video editing is nice. Um, and I've got a new favorite video editor for Linux. KDEN Live is really nice. I mean, it's got lots of capabilities and chroma keys and all kinds of stuff. Um, what about video that shows the computer screen? If you have a really steady hand, you can do all this on your phone. Um, if you want to actually do a screen capture, I don't know how to do that in Windows other than a static picture with print screen. But there's definitely software. I used to use Ice Cream Recorder, I think, years ago on Windows. Um, yeah, or a tripod. Um, But you know, unless you're really trying to get into nitty gritty of code and stuff, probably you know a camera just pointed at the screen is going to work reasonably well. OBS is definitely cool. That was my second choice before my current setup. So yeah, make a video, and if you can do that by Friday, that would be great. Definitely needs to be done by the last day. Well, Friday is the last day, so yeah, you gotta have that in by Friday. Because Friday I'll reconcile all the grading except for the final exam. So pop that in. It does not have to be, you know, super duper fancy or anything like that. We're mostly interested in the content. All right, so also PA5, I graded and posted comments and grades over the weekend. And so PA5 was certainly the most challenging of the 5 assignments, in part because it built on top of PA4, but it's got a lot of moving parts and pieces, so a few thousand lines of code, not unusual for that assignment. And varying degrees of success in getting a finished product to work. A lot of people seem to have code that started some kind of communication between two players, where at least, you know, they would somehow respond in a way that said there's some kind of contact being made here. But a fair amount of difficulty swapping names, and a pretty common issue with being able to swap mouse clicks. So some people nailed it totally, it worked great, right? Some people nailed it almost totally, and there were, like, you know, funny little issues that were just kind of like minor bugs that are just sort of, you know, tricky gotchas. Swapping turns when one player makes an illegal move and things like that. But there was a number of submissions where it didn't seem like the gameplay was working in a networked way. And that's definitely something to keep working on, and to come in and ask me for help if you want, and let's figure out how to make that work, because that was really the core of this assignment. A number of people went down probably a bad path of trying to make a pair of threads based on an example that we did a few weeks ago of doing sockets and threads. It was an example that I tried to be really clear had nothing really to do with PA5 other than using some of the same pieces of machinery, sockets and server sockets and you know, run methods and things like that. But you know, for PA5, you didn't need a pair of threads. You can do it with a pair of threads, but your communication is very much synchronized. Send, 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 send. And so a single thread will work. But the basic setup you were after was, you know, your main thread from PA4, which takes a click and responds and returns, and adding in one extra method, which is send XY to, I'll just say player 2, it could be player 1, but to the other player, right? So you add one thing inside your mouse handler which says, hey, I've got to tell the other player that a mouse click just happened. And then the other element is this new thread, which is basically receiving XY, and then process as, you know, a mouse click from the other player, and just do that in an infinite loop. Hopefully you're seeing a shared screen. If not, Zoom is flaked out. Okay, good. So it was really adding to PA4 and making a few tweaks in there. But that's easy to say kind of from the outside looking in. When you're inside there trying to do this, it's figuring out where to put these things in and how to make them interact with what you already have. Um, so yeah, come and talk to me if you're still not sure about that. So final exam is going to be very heavy on swing, on sockets, on threads, right, and things related to that. So process management, synchronizing methods, um, server client communications, all that sort of stuff. Um, so largely PA 4 and 5. Okay, cool. Yeah, Zoom has a mind of its own. And yeah, one student did implement a multiplayer version where you could have several people playing a dots game, and it would rotate from one player to another, and also had a chat feature thrown in there, and so on and so forth. Um, you can take these projects and sort of build on them as you like, um, as your other classes permit. So any lingering questions on PA5 sockets, threads, communication between threads? All right, let's talk about something different. Um, let's talk about the web. Um, as we know and love it. So we've been some actual code, some high level understanding um, for threads and for network stuff and for swing. Um, Swing, I'm not going to ask you to write a mouse listener on your own. The things that we have been using window builder to do, I'm not going to expect you to be able to do yourself, but to add or modify methods that were created by window builder, to understand the idea of painting and extending a class like a JPanel and writing your own paint method, calling repaint, things like that are all fair game. Um, that bug looks more spastic than it is. It's a good refresh rate test. Um, Client server models, creating sockets, creating server sockets, connecting, dealing with exceptions. All of that stuff is fair game on networking. And then constructing threads, extending the thread class, implementing runnables, writing a run method, calling the start method to create a thread and execute run, sharing information between threads, and concepts and techniques related to managing shared information between threads, synchronizing things like that. Those are all fair game. Yeah, there's probably a whole fruit fly family tree I could make. Um, I mean, I'm kind of hoping the population just like leaves. Sorry, fruit flies. Let's see. So we've got our client server model, right? We know that we can make a connection to to a socket and send information and receive information and so on and so forth. Um, I was looking at the chaos language. Yeah, I mean, it looks interesting. The idea of like um, only doing conditionals in your return statement and stuff like that was interesting. Um, but I didn't really dig very far into it beyond looking at their hello world and a few examples. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think everybody should invent their own programming language at some point, and if possible, make a simple compiler for it and write some code in it. Um, I mean, it's good, right? You want um, to work with different programming languages. Well, take the things you like from your favorite languages and get rid of the things you don't like, and try to roll your own language and see what you come up with, you know. And a lot of the languages people come up with, they're pet projects and don't get a lot of notice. Some of them have some curious things people like. Some of them catch on. And yeah, you can implement it into C from what I understand. Um, and it compiles into executables, which is nice. Um, but it looks like the methodology, the way you sort of think of programming in that language is a little different. Um, I'm not saying everyone in the world should write their own programming language, um, but if you're a programmer and you're interested in computer science, I think it's worth at least imagining what you would put in a language of your choice. And yeah, how many languages are built on C now? I think a lot of languages look like C, but that's just because if you're writing comments, right? In C, you can do it like that or like that. In Bash, you do it like that. You could come up with a totally new way to write comments just to be different, but then you're just saying like, spend some extra energy to learn my language. And if there's not an advantage to it, if your language isn't built around, the idea of slashes meaning something significant, right? I think people just say, well, this is what people are familiar with, and so we'll do this. Um, and so I think things will mimic existing languages, especially existing popular languages, um, just because that makes it easier for people to work in this new language. Um, you would not like my programming language. Yeah. Um, there's some papers online describing it. You would not like it. It's not a fun language. It's my 0-bit programming language, so it has no opcodes. Um, yeah, I've actually done a few languages, and in my undergrad days, we invented a language called PigNet. Um, that was a lot of fun. All right. Yeah, ZBC, 0-bit computer. All right, so we know we can connect to sockets um, by using Telnet. Um, the default socket is 21 for Telnet, and that's not listening for connections. Um, and FTP is not listening. SMTP is not connecting. Sorry, 23 is Telnet. But I can connect to port 80, and there's something listening on port 80 for connections. Right? So I could, say hello, and I get a bunch of stuff back. Right? I got back all of this stuff. HTTP, date, server, content length, and then I got a bunch of HTML. and it basically said your browser sent a request that the server could not understand. So port 80 is a web server, right? It's a process which is listening for specific types of messages, and in response to those messages may, send back a bunch of error text, nicely formatted, or it may actually go off and open a file, read the contents, and send that contents back to the client. Yeah, this was the original way to do comments in C, and this was newer. And in BASIC you say REM for remark, and then you put something in there. And in Fortran, I think there was a position that you could put a mark in, and that would turn a line into a comment. All right, so client server, we can talk to port 80, and that initiates a connection with a program that we call a web server. And so using what we already know about creating sockets and binding them to an address in the port, we could create a socketed connection to a web server, and we could pull down web pages. But we don't have to do that. There's a class in Java called URL. It's in java.net. And we can construct a URL using, guess what, a URL. And this will open up a connection to a given page. And then we can start pulling information in from that URL using scanners and so on and so forth. So let's do this in Eclipse. So we'll make a project called URL test. I need my glasses. Let's go ahead and just make a main program. So we'll do URL page equals new URL. And I'll construct it off of the shared code area. On the Linux server. And it's going to want all kinds of try-catch blocks around here, so I'm going to be lazy, and I'm just going to say my main program can throw an exception. So this is the super lazy way to deal with these things. So by putting this throw statement in, I'm telling the compiler that I'm aware that this method, main, might cause an exception of type exception or something more specific than that. And so this is really just saying, anything in here that can cause an exception, I'm not going to catch it. I'm just going to let the JVM say, hey, the method main threw an exception. Super sloppy, right? Don't do this unless you're teaching a class and you're lazy, and then you can do it. So so I'm going to construct a URL off of this page. So this is the shared code area, right? It's just an index of directories, and then let's make a scanner. So I'll construct a scanner, and the argument I'm going to give to it is back in here. I'm going to use this OpenStream method. So OpenStream opens a connection to this URL and returns an input stream for reading that connection. So this is like, you know, get input stream for a socket. We can use an OpenStream on the URL object, and that will give us an input stream which we can use to construct a scanner. So I'm going to make a new scanner. I'm going to use a constructor of URL dot page OpenStream, and I'll import scanner the lazy way. It is Typo Tuesday. Alright, so I'll iterate as long as there's more information coming in from the scanner. I'll read that line and print it out. And then I'll close it. All right, pretty simple looking program, right? Construct a URL from this page, make a scanner using that URL's OpenStream method, and then just iterate on the scanner, read in one line at a time, print out that line. Let's go ahead and run this. And malformed exception. Okay, so that's a bogus address. So it says no protocol, so I forgot to say HTTP. Alright, so let's run that. And guess what? Right, here's the web page, the HTML that was returned by the web browser, the web server, right? So there's the title, index of ~nix/shared. There's a header 1 heading, and then there's a table, and it contains the following: ~nic, 223, exrc, older, and videos. And if we go to this page, if we go there without typos, oh man. There we go. Right. So here's what a regular web browser turns up. Well, this is simply what the web browser displays in response to receiving this batch of marked up information. Right? Document type tells it it's an HTML file. It's tagged everything between HTML and the ending HTML. There's the header. Here's the body. And the bulk of the body is a table, and it's got you know, the parenter, and then 223, exrc, and so on. That's what these are. Yeah, so it shows a little picture of a folder here. and if I do this into the the 223 directory, right? Well, here's what we get when we go into 223. We get this list of other directories we can hop into with all the sample code from the course, right? And that's exactly what turns up in the HTML. And there's lots of extra stuff in here, right? It's a markup language, so it's building a table out of this and Chrome or Firefox or whatever your browser is understands these tags and uses them to, you know, put things in tabular format. And, you know, if you're in a decent web browser and you just hit Control U, it shows you the source code for the page, right? And the source code is just, you know, this information that got sent from the server. So already with the URL class, we can start pulling information out of web pages and get the raw, you know, usually HTML code that corresponds to a web page. All right, but we can do a lot more. So let me close this out. Let me grab this. So let's close this project. Let's go with something graphical. So we'll do URL test 2. We will start off with a JFrame. And let's go into our design window. And I'm going to put an absolute layout in here. And I'll make it kind of big. All right, so we're going to play with a pair of swing objects. We're going to start with a scroll pane. So I'll drop a scroll pane down here. Now, scroll pane is kind of like, you know, a JPanel. It's a container into which we can place other things, but a scroll pane will also supply us with scroll bars, so that if we try to put something on here that's too large, we can move around with scroll bars. And then I'm going to put a particular object inside here, which is an editor pane. So I'll drop the editor pane right there. And then let's go ahead and let's put a text field up here. And I'm going to call this text field where. And then I'm going to pop a button in here. This crashed me like so many times last night, but let's see if I can get past this step. Okay, that worked. All right, so we're going to make a really, really simple web browser here. Yeah, totally. All right, so what's the go button going to do? I'm going to read from the where field, which is a text field, and I'm going to use the text value in there to specify a URL to load into the editor pane. All right, so I'm going to need a URL. And I'll need to import that. All right, I think I called my variable the wrong thing, but that's okay. So I'm going to say this is equal to a new URL, and I'm going to construct it using the contents of that text field called where. So I'm going to use where.getText. And this time I'm going to go ahead and use a try catch because I don't want to go too overboard with making things. But I'm still going to be lazy and I'm going to put everything inside one try catch block instead of being sort of tactical about it. Okay, so so this opens up a connection to whatever address we specify in that text field. And then we're going to do the following. So our editor pane is called editor pane. So we're going to do editor pane.setPage. All right. So what does setPage do? Well, look at the editor pane documentation, setPage. Set the current URL being displayed. Nice. Yeah, but can I put the source code for this pane into the pane? All right. So this is 2 lines of code, right? Construct the URL, which we already did in our previous example, right? I'm just using a text field to specify the text, so I don't have to keep coming in and changing code. So specify the URL. That's an object I'm calling page, and then call the setPage method on the editor pane to display that page, right? 2 lines of code. So let's go ahead and run this. And so let's do linux.engrcs.com/nick/shared. Now let's go ahead and hit go. And there you go. There's your web page. So the editor pane not only, you know, opens a connection to that URL and pulls in the HTML, but it knows how to interpret it, right? It's like a little mini web browser. So it understands, you know, the color coding and the font and making a table and stuff like that. Now, it's not super duper full featured. It's not going to work, you know, on Bootstrap or fancy things, style pages and so on. But for basic HTML, this works great. So if we go to something like https nasa.astronomypictureoftheday.gov, come on, you can do it. You got to spell it right. https astronomypictureoftheday.nasa.gov. And there you go. There's our astronomy picture, and it's scrollable, right? So we can come down here, and today's picture is Jupiter. Yeah, these are just like mind-blowing. So this works pretty well, right? It displays images. Yeah, we are small. It's totally true. So yeah, you can totally make your own web browser with this. Unfortunately, what we've got right now is read only. Clicking on these links doesn't do anything. In fact, nothing happens when you go over a hyperlink. It's really just displaying the HTML and yeah. All right, so let's hop into the design window. And let's add an event handler to the editor pane. So we'll add an event handler, and the event we're going to do is hyperlink update. Did I crash my Eclipse? Oh boy. Yeah, I just crashed Eclipse. It's never crashed for you, good. Yeah, I'm just special that way. Alright, so let's go back into here. Let's click on here and let's add an event handler for hyperlink update. That looks better. Alright, so what should we do here? Let's just print something. Alright, so we'll print out this argument that's being passed to the event handler. And let me go back into my design window and let me put a URL in here by default. So let's go to text. Just so I don't have to type that in every time. Alright, so let's go ahead and run this. And let's hit the go button. And there's our astronomy picture of the day. And now when I hover over hyperlinks, nothing happens. Oh, it is Jovi McJupiter face. Alright, so one other thing you gotta do, which I forgot about. This editor pane, we need to change it to be not editable. I don't know why the rationale for that is I don't know why that's the rationale, but you have to make it non-editable in order to be able to get hyperlinks to do their thing. I think. Let's try it. Alright, so now when I move my cursor over a link, right, not only does my cursor change, but I get an event fired. Yeah, it does, but the way I think of it is if I've said I'm going to be allowed to edit this field, then it's an editor pane, right? I can type into there. And so moving my mouse over a link should not, cause an event. If I make it non-editable, then I'm reading it, and it's a clickable resource. Yeah. All right. So what can we do with this? Well, let's dig deeper into this event that's being passed. So we're getting a hyperlink event E. So let's look at the documentation for hyperlink event. And the main thing I'm interested in is this hyperlink event.event type. And this event type will tell me if I've entered, just moved over a link, exited, moved away, or activated, which means I've clicked it. And I want to know when I click on it. So I'm going to see if the event type of my hyperlink event is activated. So let's go ahead and add that in. So e dot, and you kind of need to do a little bit of guessing sometimes. But if you look at the methods, there's a get event type method. That seems like a good choice for what I'm interested in. So if e dot get event type, it's a method, equals, and if it's equal to this particular value activated, which is static inside the static class, right? Hyperlink event dot event type. So equals hyperlink event dot event type dot activated. Then we've got a mouse click. Yeah, definitely gotta guess sometimes. And yeah, you can make it so you don't have to click. So you like move over it and then you can turn it into a game. So we'll call the get event type on the hyperlink event object E, and we'll see if it's equal to this magic number. We have no idea what this magic number is, but we don't have to know, right? It's a field, a static field inside this class, and it will be given the value of this, right, if it's a click. So now we'll just print out a click message when we do that. Yeah, it's not activated paren because this is not a method. This is just a field. It's just a value. Yeah, you got it. All right, so let's run that. And let's go to our page. And so now I can hover and nothing happens, but then when I click, it tells me, hey, I just clicked on something. All right, so let's keep going. Oh, we're out of time. No, can't be out of time. All right, I will jump ahead to the punchline. The address is available in my click event. Correct. Yes. So I should probably just finish this up tomorrow. But we can call the get URL method. So let's go here and let's click on a link. And there's a nicely formed URL. And guess what? We just go ahead and we take that, we pop it into our get page, and it'll update our page to show, in this case, the results of this link. And so now we've got a basic web browser. All right, so we'll play around with this some more tomorrow, and then go on to other stuff. Have a good afternoon. I will see you next time. I'm going to read chat, but you're good to go. Thank you.